The ancient ritual chamber sat deep inside the planet Kess, buried beneath 500 meters of solid stone. The walls glowed with blue and purple light. They pulsed like a living heart. Thousands of the collective's finest minds had gathered here. They came from 50 different worlds. They spoke 50 different languages. But today, they all shared one hope. Kess Prime, the leader of the collective council, stood at the center of the chamber. His silver skin reflected the strange light from the walls. His eyes were ancient. They had seen 3,000 years of history. He raised his hands, and the entire room fell silent. Not a single being moved. Not a single breath was taken. The ritual master called Ven stepped forward. Ven was old even by the standards of his people. He had studied the ancient texts for 200 years. He knew the old words. He knew the old ways. His voice was rough, like stone grinding against stone, but it carried power. It carried truth. "We gather today," Ven spoke, his words echoing through the chamber, "because we are dying. The Vorthan Empire spreads across the stars like a disease. They take what is ours. They kill what we love. We have fought them with our greatest weapons. We have sent our strongest warriors. And still, we lose." He paused, every eye in the chamber fixed on him. "But there is a way," he continued. "The old texts speak of a great warrior species. They lived in the early days of the galaxy. They were so strong, so fierce, that they were feared by all. The old texts say they were buried in the void between stars. They were put into sleep. The texts say they can be called back. They can be summoned. They can save us." Around the chamber, beings began to whisper. Some nodded. Some looked doubtful. But most wanted to believe. They were desperate. When you are desperate, you believe in old stories. You believe in myths. You believe in magic. Kess Prime raised his hand again. Silence returned. "Begin the ritual," he commanded. Ven moved to the center of the summoning circle. The floor beneath his feet was not stone. It was something older. Something that had been brought from the first worlds of the galaxy. The symbols carved into it glowed with their own light. Ven began to chant. The words were not in any modern language. They came from the time before time. The very fabric of space began to shake. The air itself seemed to split. Blue lightning crackled between the walls. The ground trembled. Several beings stumbled backward. They felt it now. Something was responding. Something ancient. Something powerful. The chanting grew louder. Ven's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The symbols on the floor burned brighter. A hole began to open in the center of the circle. It was not a normal hole. It was like reality itself was tearing open. The edges of the hole rippled like water. Beyond it was not the stone wall of the chamber. Beyond it was darkness. Deep, endless darkness. And then something came through. It came slowly at first. A shadow, a shape. Then more shapes. Ven kept chanting. The ritual had to continue. The summons had to be complete. The beings from the void had to fully come through, or they would be trapped between worlds. They would be destroyed. The shape grew clearer. It was metal. It was sleek. It was dark as night. It cut through the opening like a knife through flesh. Behind it came another, and another, and another. The collective members in the chamber began to scream. This was not what they expected. The old text spoke of warriors. Warriors with bright armor. Warriors with weapons of pure energy. These things were not warriors. These things were vessels. These things were ships. And they were covered, absolutely covered, from end to end, with weapons. Ven stopped chanting. His voice cut off. The ritual was complete. The hole in space sealed itself. The rippling edges vanished. Reality snapped back into place. But what remained was impossible. A massive fleet of alien ships hovered above the planet. Kess, the largest ship, was the size of a small moon. On its side, letters blazed in red and white. United States Space Command. Kess Prime stared upward. His ancient eyes could not believe what they saw. "What have we done?" he whispered. One of the other council members pointed at the largest ship with a trembling hand. A communication signal was coming through. The frequency was strange. The language was unknown. But the translation systems in the chamber began to work. They began to decode what was being sent. A voice came through the speakers. It was human. It was calm. It was professional. But it carried an edge that made every collective member in that chamber feel a deep, cold fear. "This is Captain Robert Hayes of the United States Space Command. We received a distress call and jumped through a spatial anomaly to answer it. We are currently holding position. Can someone explain why your space just opened up and pulled our entire military fleet into an unknown region of space? And can you explain quickly? Because my weapons officers are getting nervous, and when weapons officers get nervous, bad things happen." The chamber fell completely silent. The collective had been trying to summon legendary warriors for 1,000 years. They had finally succeeded, but not in the way they had expected. The universe had other plans. They had called for heroes. They had gotten soldiers instead. They had called for myths. They had gotten reality. And reality, they were about to discover, was far more dangerous than any legend. Kess Prime looked at Ven. Ven looked back at him. Neither being could speak. They had done something. They had changed something. They had opened a door that could not be closed. Above them, in the massive metal ship called the Constellation, Captain Robert Hayes stared at the alien planet below. His weapons were armed. His shields were up. His crew was ready. He did not know what he had walked into, but he knew one thing. Humanity was now a long, long way from home. And they had come prepared for war. The war, however, was about to begin in ways nobody expected. Captain Robert Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Constellation and read the translation of the alien message again. His face showed nothing. His eyes were cold. His crew knew this look. It meant he was thinking fast. It meant trouble was coming. Hayes had spent 20 years in the military. He had served in 3 different wars. He had lost friends in combat. He had made decisions that cost people their lives. He had learned long ago not to show emotion when the stakes were high. You showed emotion later, in private. Right now, you showed strength. Next to him stood Commander Diane Foster. She was his second in command, and she was the finest officer he had ever worked with. They had trained together at the academy. They had served together on 3 different ships. They trusted each other completely. Diane pulled up the scanner data on the main display. The information was still coming in. The alien vessels were arranged in what looked like a defensive formation. But they were not attacking. Their weapons were not locked on. Their shields were not raised. They were nervous, maybe even scared. "We have 47 alien ships on the sensors," Diane said. Her voice was steady. "All of them have weapons. All of them have shields. But none of them are armed. They are just sitting there. They are waiting," Hayes said. "They pulled us here. Now they are waiting to see what we do." Hayes had received the distress call an hour ago. It had been badly distorted. The frequency was wrong. The language was impossible to understand. But the distress signal pattern was universal. It was a cry for help. So Hayes had done what any captain would do. He had investigated. He had led the fleet through the spatial anomaly. And now he was here, thousands of light years from home, facing down an alien civilization. "Open a communication channel," Hayes commanded. the communications officer. A young woman named Lisa Park worked the controls. Static filled the channel. Then a voice broke through. It was smooth, almost musical, but it was filled with fear. Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves. We are the Collective Governing Council. We have summoned you in our greatest hour of need. We require your aid. Hayes leaned back in his chair. Summoned. They had not come through accident. They had been called. Someone had done this deliberately. But why? Why would an alien civilization summon an unknown military fleet? This is Captain Robert Hayes of the United States Space Command. We received a distress signal and came to help. Can you tell me what is happening here? Can you tell me why we were summoned? There was a pause. A long pause. Hayes could hear the alien voice talking to others in the background. They were arguing about something. Finally, the voice returned. Captain Hayes, we believed we were summoning a legendary warrior species. We performed a ritual. We opened the door to the void. We called to the great warriors of the past. We did not expect to call a military force. We did not expect this. Hayes turned to Diane. She raised an eyebrow. The alien civilization had been trying to summon some kind of myth or legend. Instead, they had pulled through the human military. It was either the best luck or the worst luck Hayes had ever heard of. What kind of threat are you facing? Hayes asked into the communication channel. The response came quickly. Too quickly. Like they had been waiting for this question. The Vorthan Empire. They are a warrior species. For the past year, they have been attacking our worlds. They have conquered 12 star systems. They have destroyed millions of lives. Our fleet is not strong enough to stop them. We are losing. We are dying. We are dying. We summoned you because we believed you could save us. Hayes stood up from his chair. He walked to the main display and looked at the alien ships. They were not beautiful ships. They were not sleek or elegant. They looked practical, functional, like they had been built for work, not show. Open the main channel to all alien vessels, Hayes ordered. Now, Lisa Park made the connection. Hayes spoke clearly and directly. This is Captain Robert Hayes. I do not know what you expected when you summoned us. I do not know what you believed we would be. But I can tell you what we are. We are the military of the United States of America. We are soldiers. We are trained. We are ready. Most importantly, we know how to fight. And we do not know how to lose. He paused. Let that sink in. I need information. I need to know everything about the Vorthan Empire. I need to know their weapons. I need to know their tactics. I need to know their bases, their ships, their commanders. I need to know how they fight and what they fear. And I need it fast. There was another pause. Longer this time. Captain Hayes, you will help us? The alien voice asked. There was hope in the words now. Real hope. Yes, Hayes said. But not because you summoned us. I would help you anyway. That is what humanity does. We see people in trouble, and we help them. But I am going to help you the way we do things. We are going to fight. We are going to be smart. And we are going to win. He cut off the communication channel. Diane was looking at him with a small smile. She knew him. She knew exactly what he was going to do. Get me all the data they have, Hayes said to the bridge crew. I want to know everything about the Vorthan. Get me everything about this collective. Get me everything about these star systems. I want tactical maps. I want historical data. I want to know who we are fighting and where we are fighting them. And then, Diane asked. Hayes turned to her. His eyes were hard. His voice was cold. And then we show these aliens what humanity is really capable of. We show them why you do not summon a species that has spent 10,000 years learning how to survive. We show them why humanity is not a myth. We show them why humanity is real, and why real is so much more dangerous than legend. He looked back at the alien fleet. He thought about home. He thought about Earth. He thought about every soldier in his command who had volunteered to come to the stars. Send a message to all ships, Hayes ordered. Battle stations. Prepare for combat operations. And get my weapons officers ready, because things are about to get very, very serious. The constellation hummed with energy as every system moved to war readiness. The alien civilization had wanted a savior. They had wanted a legend. What they had gotten instead was something far more practical. They had gotten humanity. And humanity had only one thing to offer: victory. The data started arriving within 2 hours. The collective sent everything they had: ships' movement records, weapon specifications, combat footage, maps of the Vorthan territories, tactical reports. All of it came through the communication channels in a constant stream. Captain Hayes sat in his command center with his senior officers. They were gathered around a large holographic display. The display showed the region of space they were in. It showed where the Vorthan Empire operated. It showed where the collective worlds were located. The picture was not good. The Vorthan had conquered 12 star systems in the past year. They were moving slowly but steadily through collective space. They were not in a hurry. They did not need to be. They had superior weapons. They had superior numbers. The collective could not stop them. It was that simple. Commander Nathan Rodriguez was the chief tactical officer. He studied the combat footage the collective had sent. He watched how the Vorthan fought. He watched how the collective tried to stop them. And he saw something that made him smile. Not a happy smile. A cold smile. They are predictable, Rodriguez said. Explain, Hayes ordered. Rodriguez pointed at the holographic display. He pulled up the combat footage from the last battle. The collective fleet was arranged in neat formations. They attacked in organized lines. They followed patterns. They were disciplined. But they were also predictable. The Vorthan ships came in from above. They had superior firepower. They focused it on specific targets. The collective ships fell apart under the concentrated fire. Some of the collective ships tried to escape. Some tried to defend. But they all died the same way. They all died because they fought the same way. The Vorthan expect the collective to fight like them, Rodriguez continued. Organized, formal, by the rules. The collective is doing exactly what they expect. So the Vorthan know what is coming. They know where the attacks will come from. They know how to counter them. He turned to Hayes. We do not fight like that, Rodriguez said. Hayes nodded. This was what he had been thinking. This was why humanity had a chance. Humanity had spent 10,000 years fighting. They had fought animals. They had fought nature. They had fought each other. Over and over again, humans had faced stronger enemies. Over and over again, humans had been forced to think, to adapt, to survive using brains instead of brute strength. Modern human military doctrine was built on this history. You did not fight enemy strength with your own strength. You found the enemy's weakness. You attacked from unexpected directions. You adapted to changing conditions in real time. Every soldier, from the lowest private to the highest general, was taught to think, to make decisions, to act without waiting for orders. The Vorthan fought with technology and strength. They fought with overwhelming force. They fought the way a species that had never had to adapt would fight. How many Vorthan ships are currently in the region? Hayes asked. Lieutenant Victoria Mason answered. She was in charge of intelligence gathering. The best estimate is 137 active combat ships, she said. plus support vessels. The collective has 52 ships, but most of them are damaged or low on supplies. So we are outnumbered, Hayes said. Yes, Victoria admitted, but not in the way that matters. She pulled up more data. This data came from human databases. Information about Vorthan biology, Vorthan psychology, everything that human intelligence agencies had gathered about this species over the decades. The Vorthan have high individual strength, Victoria explained, but they have low adaptability. Their culture values obedience. Their military structure is rigid. Officers give orders. Soldiers follow them. There is no flexibility. There is no creativity. She paused. Humanity is the opposite. Every human soldier is trained to think. Every human soldier is trained to make decisions. When conditions change, humans adapt. We do not need an officer to tell us what to do. We already know. Diane Foster leaned back in her chair. She was following Hayes' thinking. She knew exactly where this was going. We use deception, Diane said. We make them think we are doing one thing. We actually do another. We hit them from angles they do not expect. We use every advantage we have. And we accept losses. She looked at Hayes. That is the part that matters most. The Vorthan will try to minimize their losses. They will fight carefully. They will try to preserve their forces. We will be willing to take losses. We will push harder. We will risk more. And that is how we win. Hayes stood up. He walked to the window of the command center. Outside, the collective fleet floated in the darkness. They were waiting. They were hoping. They had summoned salvation from the void. Now they wanted to know if salvation could actually save them. Bring the council leadership online, Hayes ordered. I want to talk to them. Lisa Park made the connection. A moment later, the face of Kes Prime appeared on the display. The alien leader looked older than before. The weight of his world's survival was pressing down on him. Captain Hayes, Kes Prime said, have you reviewed our data? Do you understand what we are facing? I understand, Hayes said, and I have a plan. He paused. He wanted to make sure the alien understood what he was saying, what it would cost. But I need to tell you something first. When we fight the Vorthan, some of my people will die. Some of your people will die. War is not clean. War is not safe. War is blood and loss and pain. Are you prepared to accept that? There was a long silence. Then Kes Prime spoke. We have already lost millions. Millions more will die if the Vorthan are not stopped. So yes, Captain Hayes, we are prepared to accept loss. We are prepared for war. Hayes nodded. Then here is what we are going to do, he said. The Vorthan expect to face the collective. They expect to face a force that fights the way they fight. We are going to show them something different. We are going to show them what happens when you face a species that adapts. A species that thinks. A species that has spent millennia learning how to survive. He looked directly at Kes Prime. We are going to show them humanity. And they are not going to know what hit them. Rodriguez was already working on tactical plans. Victoria was gathering more intelligence. Diane was coordinating with the other human ship commanders. The entire human fleet was switching into attack mode. They had a mission now. They had a purpose. In the depths of space, near the Vorthan territories, something was about to change. The galaxy had never seen humanity fight before. The galaxy was about to learn why that was both lucky and unlucky. Lucky for the collective, very unlucky for the Vorthan. The battle started on a quiet morning. The Vorthan fleet came out of hyperspace exactly where the human intelligence had predicted. They came in their usual formation. They came with their usual confidence. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge of the constellation. Every screen showed the same thing. Red dots. 137 Vorthan ships. They were beautiful in their own way. Sleek, efficient, built for war. But they were also predictable. All ships, break formation, Hayes ordered. Execute attack pattern Delta, now. What happened next would shock the galaxy. The human fleet did not form a defensive line. It did not arrange itself in any organized pattern. Instead, it scattered. Ships broke apart from each other, flying in different directions. The Vorthan commander watched this chaos with confusion. This was not how you fought a war, but that confusion lasted only seconds. Because as the human ships scattered, they attacked. Small groups of 3 or 4 ships coordinated with each other. They came at the Vorthan from multiple angles at once. The Vorthan ships tried to respond, but by the time they turned to face one human attack, another was coming from a different direction. Commander Rodriguez watched the battle from his tactical station. His job was to coordinate with other human captains. But the human captains did not need much coordination. They understood the plan. They understood the goal. Each captain made independent decisions based on what they saw happening. Each captain adapted to the changing battle. The first Vorthan ship was hit hard. Multiple human vessels focused their fire on it at the same time. The alien ship's shields flared bright. For a moment, it held. Then the shields collapsed. The human weapons tore through the Vorthan hull. The ship exploded in a massive burst of energy. The Vorthan commander sent out new orders. He tried to organize his forces. He tried to create a formation that could respond to the human tactics. But it was too late. Before the Vorthan ships could form up, the humans hit them again. From different angles. From different directions. Always where the Vorthan did not expect. Aboard the USS Liberty, a smaller human vessel, Captain Nathan Washington saw an opportunity. A Vorthan carrier was heading toward a civilian world. There were millions of people on that world. Families, children, schools. Washington did not hesitate. He turned his ship and moved to intercept. The Vorthan carrier opened fire. The weapons were massive. They were designed to destroy planets. But Washington's ship was smaller. It was faster. Washington flew his ship like a man flying a fighter jet. He twisted. He dove. He evaded. The Vorthan weapons missed. Washington's tactical officer locked on and fired everything they had. The weapons were smaller than the Vorthan guns, but they were accurate. They were fast, and they kept firing. Again and again. The Vorthan carrier shields started to fail. Washington hit the engines. The ship accelerated. The G-forces were extreme. His crew could barely breathe, but they stayed at their stations. This was what they trained for. This was why they were here. Washington fired again. The Vorthan shields collapsed. The carrier took damage, but it did not stop. It kept moving toward the civilian world. Washington fired one more time. The weapons tore into the Vorthan engines. The massive ship began to slow. Then it began to fall. Its trajectory changed. Instead of hitting the civilian world, it was going to miss. Washington did not celebrate. He was already moving toward the next target. All across the battle space, the same thing was happening. Human ships were hunting Vorthan ships. They were working together in small groups. They were hitting and running. They were attacking weak points. They were using every advantage. The Vorthan commander realized something was wrong. His forces were being picked apart. His superior firepower was not helping him. His superior numbers were not helping him. He was losing. He sent out an emergency message to all Vorthan ships. Regroup at coordinates Alpha 7. We will form a unified defense. But the human captains saw this order being transmitted. Rodriguez intercepted it. He immediately transmitted new orders to all human ships. All vessels, do not let them regroup. Keep attacking. Keep them separated. The human fleet accelerated. They pressed the attack. They gave the Vorthen no time to organize. No time to think. No time to prepare a unified defense. 3 hours into the battle, the Vorthen commander realized he was beaten. He had more ships. He had stronger weapons. But he was fighting a species he did not understand. A species that adapted. A species that thought. A species that would not break. He gave the order to retreat. All ships, disengage. Jump to hyperspace on my command. But jumping to hyperspace took time. It took preparation. The human ships were still attacking. The Vorthen did not have time to prepare properly. The order came. The Vorthen ships tried to escape, but they were scattered, separated from each other. The human ships chased them. They hit them as they tried to jump. Some Vorthen ships made it to hyperspace. Some did not. When it was over, 63 Vorthen ships had been destroyed. 31 had jumped away damaged. 43 were fleeing at maximum speed. The Vorthen Armada had been broken. The human losses were heavy. 7 ships destroyed. 23 damaged. Hundreds of human soldiers dead. But they had won. They had beaten an enemy that was supposed to be superior. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge of the Constellation. Around him, his crew was cheering. But Hayes said nothing. He was thinking about the people who had died. He was thinking about the families who would receive notifications tonight. He was thinking about the cost of victory. But he was also thinking about the millions of people on the civilian worlds who would live because of what his fleet had done today. Send a message to all remaining Vorthen vessels, Hayes ordered quietly. Tell them that if they attack the collective again, we will find them. We will hunt them, and we will destroy them. The message was sent. In the Vorthen fleet, as the ships jumped to hyperspace, the commander received the message. He read it, he understood it, and he made a decision. He would report to the Vorthen leadership what he had seen today. He would tell them about the humans. He would tell them that the humans were different. They were dangerous. They were not to be fought. They were to be avoided. They were to be feared. The galaxy was about to learn that it had a new power now, and that power was humanity. The treaty talks began 3 weeks after the battle ended. The collective sent their leaders to meet with Captain Hayes. They came to a neutral meeting place, a space station that had been damaged in the war and was now being used as a peace ground. Cass Prime walked into the meeting chamber. He moved slowly. Age and exhaustion made his movements heavy, but his eyes were clear. They showed relief. They showed hope. Captain Hayes stood to greet him. The two beings looked at each other. One was alien. One was human. They came from different worlds. They spoke different languages, but they understood each other now. They had fought together. They had won together. That created a bond that no distance could break. Captain Hayes, Cass Prime said. He reached out his hand. Hayes took it. In the collective's culture, this was a sign of respect, of gratitude. You have saved us. You have saved billions of lives. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Hayes shook his head. You do not owe us anything, Hayes said. We came here because we were called, but we stayed because it was right, because your people needed help, because we could help. That is what humanity does. We help those who cannot help themselves. The meeting lasted 3 hours. The collective offered technology. They offered resources. They offered position and honor within their alliance. Hayes listened to all of it. But he had one condition. The Vorthen will eventually come back, Hayes said. They have been stopped but not destroyed. Eventually, they will try again. When that happens, we need to be ready. I want to establish a permanent human presence here. A military base, ships, soldiers, people who can respond quickly if there is another attack. Cass Prime agreed immediately. The collective would provide whatever the humans needed. The humans would provide security and protection. Hayes also made another request. I want to send messages back to Earth, he said. I want my government to know what happened here. I want them to understand that humanity has reached the stars, and that we have a role to play in this galaxy. We are not just explorers anymore. We are protectors. We are defenders. The messages were sent. They traveled back to Earth through the same spatial anomaly that had brought the human fleet to this region of space. It took 3 weeks for the fastest message to reach Earth. Then it took another 2 weeks for the response to come back. The response was from the President of the United States. It was simple but powerful. Captain Hayes, you have brought honor to humanity. You have shown that we are more than a species that destroys and conquers. You have shown that we are a species that protects. You are authorized to establish permanent military installations in collective space. You are authorized to recruit new personnel. You are authorized to build whatever you need to defend this region of space. You have the gratitude of your nation. You have the gratitude of your species. Hayes read the message 3 times. He thought about Earth, about home, about all the people he had left behind. They were thousands of light years away. He would probably never see them again. But he knew that he was doing something important. He was doing something that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The humans who had been killed in the battle were honored. Memorials were built. The collective held ceremonies to honor the human sacrifice. 143 human soldiers had died. Every name was recorded. Every name was remembered. The collective promised that these names would be carved into stone, that they would be remembered for 1,000 years. Captain Nathan Washington received a promotion. He was made commander of the first permanent human base in collective space. Dozens of new ships arrived over the following months. More soldiers came. They came from every nation on Earth. American soldiers, Chinese soldiers, Russian soldiers, Indian soldiers, European soldiers, African soldiers. Every nation that had a military contributed people to the human presence in collective space. A city was built. They called it New Hope. It was not a combat zone. It was a place where humans and collective members could live together, where they could trade, where they could exchange knowledge, where they could build friendships that crossed the boundaries between species. Commander Diane Foster became the leader of the human diplomatic mission. She spent her days talking with collective leaders, learning about their culture, their history, their dreams, explaining humanity to those who had never encountered humans before. The collective members were surprised. They had expected warriors, cold, brutal, efficient. What they found instead was something more complex. Humans were warriors, yes, but they were also capable of love, of compassion, of sacrifice for people they did not even know. One day, Diane visited the memorial for the human soldiers who had died. She walked along the wall of names. She read each one. She thought about each person. Some had been young, 20 years old. Some had been old, 40, 50 years old. All of them had volunteered to come to this strange place. All of them had known the risks. All of them had come anyway. A young collective member was tending to the memorial. She was learning about human history, learning why humans were the way they were. Why did they die? The young collective asked. They came from so far away. They did not have to fight our war. Diane thought about the question. She thought about the right answer. Because they were human. Diane said finally. And humans choose. We do not have to do the right thing. We choose to do it anyway. That is what makes us human. Back on Earth, more people were being trained. The military academies now had a new purpose. They were not just training soldiers for Earth. They were training soldiers for the galaxy. Young people from every nation were volunteering. They wanted to be part of humanity's future. Among the stars, Captain Robert Hayes received a visit from the new military leadership on Earth. They wanted to talk about expanding the human presence. They wanted to know if humanity could take on more responsibilities. Could humans defend other worlds? Could humans maintain peace across a wider region of space? Hayes considered these questions carefully. Humanity was young. Humanity was inexperienced in galactic politics. But humanity was also strong. Humanity was also willing to sacrifice for others. Humanity was also willing to learn. Yes, Hayes said finally. But slowly. We do this carefully. We protect what we can protect. We learn as we go. We do not try to control everything. We try to maintain peace. We try to help those who cannot help themselves. In the depths of space, near what used to be the border between Collective and Vorthan territory, the Vorthan commander was writing his official report. He described the humans. He described their tactics. He described their courage. He concluded with one statement. We should never have summoned them. They came through space and changed everything. We were the strongest force in this galaxy. Now they are. But I think that might be a good thing. Because unlike us, they do not seek to conquer. They seek to protect. And that is something the galaxy has needed for a long time. Millions of light years away on a world called Earth, people looked up at the night sky. They knew now that humans were out there. They knew that their species had reached the stars. They knew that humanity had found its place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as protectors, as defenders, as the kind of species that would die for strangers. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human exploration had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.